Joe Mays and J-Raff Show, bringing you the latest news and commentary on baseball.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out! The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball!
Hockey.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup! The Flyers win the Stanley Cup!
College football.
The Big Ten championship lies on a measurement.
Did he get it? No! He didn't get it! Penn State holds!
They brought back the fun, they brought back the excitement, and now they brought back a Big Ten championship. The Penn State Nittany Lions are Big Ten champions.
And the NFL.
9 seconds left. Eagles by 8. Brady lines them up. He's back again. He steps up. He's hit. He stumbles. He is throwing it deep for the end zone, and it is batted around and incomplete. And the game is over. The game is over. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin.
Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Raffoff.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 266 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting next to me, my co-host, Justin Raffoff.
Yeah, it's good to be back. You know, we had the we were back for that brief stint of 1 week, then you know, the holidays and all that kind of stuff. So good to be back, and plenty to talk about tonight.
Do have the cameras properly aligned this week, which caught me off guard 2 weeks ago. So much better this week. And
way to go.
Yeah, I'm happy with myself, and I was able to do a minimal amount of effort on my part to just realign, realign the cameras.
Yeah, that's what we're about, though.
It's minimal effort on very limited amount of tasks that we have to do here. But we're happy to be back because there's always a lot of talk about when it comes to the NFL. And, you know, with us being off last week, we probably should touch on Week 12 a little bit. Obviously, Week 13, which this was kind of a week of upsets and surprises.
Yeah,
especially
teams that had looked like they maybe were starting to pack it in and making those plans for January, not playoff plans, but came out of nowhere and maybe threw a wrench in some other teams' plans this week. So
yeah, really, it's amazing what can happen in just a few weeks. You know, it was, 2 weeks ago, we were talking after Week 11, and there were a few teams that you thought were destined for greatness or destined for mediocrity or worse in the case of a few teams.
I think it's interesting because there's been a lot of talk I feel like I've seen it a lot this year too about like people's preference between college football and NFL football. I think you and I are kind of one of those situations where we truly love both, but we recognize there's a lot of similarities, but they aren't necessarily the same thing. And you see that kind of like the worst Division I college football teams are not going to beat like the best or even middle of the pack teams pretty much ever. Like the worst teams, you know what I mean? Whereas in the NFL, like, you know, maybe not like, you know, the high flying teams, but man, the gap between most of the teams is so small. It's a matter of execution on a few extra plays, you know, decide so many games in the NFL. Whereas there's a lot of college games where, like, in order for
it comes down to
like,
personnel. That's what recruiting classes
in order for
matter.
like Pitt to beat Clemson,
right.
You need a lot to go.
Ooh, we got some audio coming through here. This is an NFL play from the Cleveland-Houston game, which we will get to momentarily. So apologize for that popping in there. I love autoplay videos. It's the best. All websites should use autoplay videos, by the way.
With sound.
Absolutely.
With sound,
that makes it even better. So, yeah.
At least there weren't a million tabs open during the figure out which tab.
Yeah, at least it wasn't. And an ad playing. At least it was an actual NFL highlight that was playing.
Yeah.
That's always preferred versus some ad for something that no one cares about at all. So let me pull up the scores here for everyone to take a look at. And we want to go make those larger for people to see. There we go. Wow, that'll work, huh? That'll work here. So probably a game you don't want to talk about, but we have to talk about. Is the one from Thursday evening. That one probably didn't finish the way you had hoped it would as an Eagles fan.
Not at all.
But the Cowboys shocked nearly everyone. I'd say everyone. Yeah, well, I mean, I'd say at least 95%. I'd say 95%. Based on our pool, where we have 20 people and 19 took New Orleans.
And it's not just us. I heard someone on Friday morning say that more money had come in on the Saints in that game in Vegas than any other team in any other game all year.
Wow.
Yeah. And somebody replied, they always have enough money for the electric bill in Vegas. Like, the lights always stay on for a reason.
There is a reason to that. So, Cowboys, an amazing defensive effort. Were able to take down the Saints 13-10. The Saints had won, I believe, 10 in a row, right? Because they had lost to Tampa Bay in week 1, which knocked me and my dad out of the survivor pool. Thanks a lot.
Nearly lost to Cleveland in week 2. If they had a kicker, they do lose.
So we were actually being like, well, kind of what we thought, because we both weren't super high on the Saints. You were higher on them than I was. I just didn't think they were going to be able to do it this year. I thought Kamara was going to be kind of a flash in the pan, 1 year wonder. That's proven to be inaccurate.
I feel like the Saints do this kind of each year, though, and in the good years and the bad years. Like they have a game about 2/3 of the way through where you're just like, what was that? And this is one of those things that drove me nuts from hearing it from people whose job it is to talk sports, like actual job, not just like having fun. When they're talking, the Saints coming off the short week. They weren't coming off the short week.
No, they weren't.
They played on Thanksgiving night just like the Cowboys.
Yep.
It was a full week. The week before, if you want to talk about that on Thanksgiving night, but they looked good on Thanksgiving night. So I understand. And if you said it was a different week, absolutely, it's a different week. But it's not a short week. Like, that drives me nuts. And when you have, I was listening to some shows and people talking, they're doing entire segments, and no one corrected them the whole time. And I know generally, like, that the producers there jump in, so it's kind of crazy. But anyway, that was a really good win for the Cowboys based on their defense. Their defense is playing lights out right now.
For sure.
They were able to get pressure with the front 4 guys, which is key, because then they're able to play defense.
Huge.
Van Der Esch is running around making tackles from sideline to sideline, and then
you see our comments here on Facebook. Let's see. So first is Denali bragging because, yes, she is the one. I believe I mentioned that already, but I'll say it again because she probably tuned in late. She's not really good about being on time. So, so Denali did, in our pool of 20 people, Denali was the only one to take Dallas. So she jumped out to a 1-0 lead on the rest of us. So, kudos to her. My buddy Zach, who I was just on a podcast with him on Friday night, I can't tell what NFL team he likes because I actually don't know. So, Zach, you should definitely tell me who you're a fan of. Maybe you're a fan of Houston because he's a Texan.
Okay.
So, that's why I was a little surprised, but I wasn't sure which NFL team he was a fan of. So, Zach says Dallas fans expect to win every game, then get pissed when they lose. Horrible fan base. Eagles only one's probably worse. So, there you have it.
They may be worse, but you know what? They won last year.
So, that's true, and you can take that to the bank.
Well, and I have to. That's pretty much what I have to talk about now, from now until February, because, until it happens, like, I'm just going to go with that.
So, but yeah, kudos to Dallas for taking care of business. That's a huge win for them. That's a game that everyone was saying they're going to lose and be 6-6. Saints are going to be 11-1.
Right. Well, and it's a big game for the Saints too, because they had home field. Because they had the tiebreaker against the Rams, but they had the same number of losses as the Rams.
Right.
And so because they lost, the Rams are now back in that first place. And the difference between that could be the Saints going to – I'm going by seed here. I know they just lost. but the Saints going to LA or LA coming to New Orleans, and that's a huge difference.
That's a huge difference.
Now, one thing of concern still is the Cowboys didn't score in the second half. Dak Prescott fumbled pretty much every other time he got hit. Like it's one of those things where the offense did not look good. The defense looked amazing. Like the defense looked great. Like and so it's going to be one of those things where how does that kind of play out now? Zeke got his touches, and that's key for them. They didn't pull like the Giants a couple weeks ago when they didn't give Saquon the ball against the Eagles. You got 5 touches in the second half. But yeah, that was a great win for the Cowboys. They're now in the driver's seat. And this is one of those too where you see some of this where they're talking about like not strength of schedule. That's a college term, but like in terms of how hard is the remaining schedule.
Right.
The Cowboys, it's not easy, but it's not like impossible. The Eagles have the hardest in the NFL remaining schedule, including they have Washington, who's coming off essentially the mini bye because they played on Thanksgiving, don't play till Monday.
Right.
And then they have to play the next week, the Cowboys, I think, maybe again on Monday night. But it's also the Cowboys are coming off of the mini, even if it's not on Monday night. The Cowboys are coming off the mini bye, having played on Thursday. So they play back-to-back division teams with being able to like have that extra time rest. And the Eagles, let's face it, haven't been that great already anyway. So like there are other problems other than the other team having more rest. Like I don't mean to make it sound like that's the only issue, but yeah, the Cowboys did a lot to kind of cement themselves here in a great position for that NFC East championship.
Who would have thought it about a month ago?
It's theirs to lose now.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So,
on the other hand, maybe it's a good thing for all the other teams because Jason Garrett will probably keep his job then, and they can go 8-8 next year, right?
Let's not talk
about the inverse of what they do this year. So they'll go
9-7, 7-9.
Yep. There we go.
That great stuff. So my buddy Zach just got back to me. He said he does follow Houston, but he's actually a closet Packers fan. So why don't we talk about the Packers here? Let's jump ahead a little bit because interesting, shocking, surprising result, and what happened afterwards. Maybe I don't know. What do you think? Packers lose to the Cardinals, and Mike McCarthy is fired basically immediately.
Okay, so a lot of people thought Mike McCarthy was pretty much done anyway. There have been people that thought that the last couple years. I think it's interesting because while not mathematically eliminated, today's loss pretty much ends their playoff.
Because they win their last 4 and they're 8-7-1.
Right. So there's still a chance mathematically, but they were going to need help before today's loss. Losing to the Cardinals in Green Bay is awful. When you haven't won road game in over a year or whatever, and now you don't win home games either against a bad team.
Yeah, Cardinals are not good.
And you only score 17 points, and you're running the same offense you ran, for the last few years. Like, I understand that. But at the same time, I don't know. Like, don't get me wrong. Aaron Rodgers is incredible. Like, and I feel like maybe it is just some of it kind of like getting washed in there. But the Packers, they had that run a couple years ago where they lost to the Falcons in the NFC Championship game when they went on the. Was that the year Rodgers said relax? On the air,
that was
and then
2 years ago.
Right, and then they went on the. No, that was 2 years ago.
Okay.
Then they went on the crazy run, won like 8 in a row, like make the playoffs, go to Dallas, beat Dallas in Dallas. Do all these things, but like honestly, other than that, it's just kind of been middle of the pack. Actually, it's not middle of the pack. I feel like the Packers have been what we talk about as the worst case scenario. Like they're good enough to like be in playoff contention every year, but not good enough to win the Super Bowl any of those years.
Right.
And that's you find yourself drafting like 22nd every year. Like I don't know. I think 13 years is a long time.
It's amazing to me that he was there that long. Like, I just wasn't thinking about it. When they said that he had been there for 13 years, he took over from Mike Sherman, right?
Unless you're going to make the move, or unless they have the guy they want to hire now, unless they want to hire a college guy or something like that.
Lincoln Riley?
Maybe. I doubt it. But, like, can you imagine Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma before their playoff game?
Oh.
That would be nuts.
Well, he was somewhat linked to the Cleveland, right? And he said no.
Well, only because Baker's there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't really think about that.
But the Packers, like, unless you have a guy lined up, like, why now? You know, like, I don't understand. Like, the guy's been with you 13 years. He won a Super Bowl with you. Like, unless there's rumors that Rodgers and he don't get along, and so maybe that's part of it.
Really?
You know, but like, you have Rodgers locked up. It's not like he's going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand the timing. Yeah, the timing is odd to me, just in that you had the chances to fire him before and you didn't, and you'll have the chance to fire him at the end of the year. Like, what's it matter now? You know, like unless you think. But here's the thing: your offense has been like the big part that's been like the problem. So, all right, so now you have guys that are going to step in there. Like, I just. If you don't think, if you think your next coach might be on the staff currently, then you fire in season. I understand that, right? Because then you at least get to see it.
Right.
If you don't think your next coach is on staff, which I believe is where the Packers are, I don't think they're going to hire someone on their staff. Then why do you fire in season? I don't really understand.
Yeah.
So,
right.
But
your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. I mean, I understand why it happened because of the performance recently.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
Why start it now? Like, who are you going to go after? Who's going to leave in the middle? Now you're left with Joe Philbin, who's been a Packers guy, was a Packers guy during, kind of the McCarthy Renaissance, the great years of the Packers organization, but that was about a decade ago.
Right. And that's where I don't know how it went. Maybe they told McCarthy, like, look, you're done now. You can't save your job. Do you want to finish it out, or do you want to be done? And he said, I want to be done. So maybe it's going to help him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It could be. It could very well be.
You never know. But, yeah, I think it was time for him to go. Yeah. So, we'll see.
So Zach says he's heard Packers fans that want Dabo or Harbaugh.
I don't
know that either of them are interested in the NFL.
I don't think they are, and it would be a huge pay cut for Harbaugh.
Yeah,
like Harbaugh makes like with I've read the articles that talk about how with he gets all kinds of stuff from like the boosters and stuff. You know how that's all crazy in college football.
For sure.
Like he makes like upwards of like over $10 million a year. Like I don't think Harbaugh's worth John Gruden money, but
oh gosh,
like
what a mistake.
Right, but that joke aside, like. I don't know, and I don't know. This might sound terrible because, like, do you leave Clemson for Green Bay?
No,
I don't either.
Not the way it's going right now.
No way.
You won a national championship and played for what, 2 others?
Oh, and you have the second best recruiting class every year at Alabama. Like, things are just fine at Clemson.
Right. I don't see the reasoning unless it's you. I want to take the next step. Like
that's true.
The NFL is the peak.
Right.
That is where everyone is trying to get to.
I don't get that from Dabo though.
But
man. He's got that like players connection. I think he's the perfect example of that guy that would not be a good fit as an NFL coach, not because of the like coaching ability, but
like Saban.
There's so many stories. There's so many stories about like the connections he has with his players and like all that stuff. You don't get that in the NFL, man. Like,
yeah,
it's very different. So it'll be interesting. But I think just odd from the Packers. But, I mean, I agree they had to make the move. It probably is overdue to begin with. So,
yeah,
I guess if you're on borrowed time, you can't really complain that they pulled the trigger.
So, Greg wants to know who wins the NFC East, which we'll get back to. We kind of already mentioned it when we went over the Dallas-New Orleans game, but we'll come back to it. First, let's cover a couple of games here. We're never going to get through all of them.
All right, we can fly through some of these.
Ravens at Falcons. I'm guessing this is one that you were wrong on?
I was wrong.
Okay.
I was wrong.
Because I took Baltimore.
I had Baltimore written, and then I changed it for the Falcons. But I thought it's because I thought going on the road, I thought the Falcons' defense was going to kind of hold the running game in check and therefore shut down the Ravens. And the Ravens looked good, and their defense looked really good. One of those touchdowns that the Falcons scored was against the Ravens' offense. It was a fumble recovery for a touchdown.
Oh, wow.
So, fumble recovery like 60 yards for a touchdown. So, yeah, the defense for the Ravens, the number one total defense and number one scoring defense coming into the day, and I don't know how they calculate scoring defense. They should, I know there's a lot of talk about it, not count those defensive touchdowns against you.
You would think,
and I think that's how they do it. So that would be another one against Matt Ryan, man. Ooh. Thanks for the fantasy bust, man.
So, speaking of fantasy bust, no, we're not doing the Colts right now. Yeah, bird-on-bird crime in Atlanta. I actually favored Atlanta. I was like, I'm taking the Falcons because of, everyone thinks the Georgia Dome. Well, I know it's not Georgia Dome, but
it's a dome in Georgia. Close enough.
Right, close enough. Right, it's a Mercedes-Benz, right? Same thing as It's not the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. It's the Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Yeah, I think it is.
That's not confusing at all. But then I thought about it. I was like, no, the Falcons, just because they're at home doesn't mean anything. And I was like, Baltimore's a better team. And thankfully they proved it today because it was one that I was concerned about.
Yeah.
So Broncos, Bengals, I think this result was as expected because after the Bengals kind of surprised everyone at the beginning of the year, they've definitely fallen off. Yeah. Now, I know AJ Green came back briefly today, but Andy Dalton's gone.
And Andy Dalton's on IR. And there are rumors, once again, talking about things kind of cyclical here. Talking about a coach that probably has overstayed his welcome. Marvin Lewis is probably gone too.
Yeah. So quickly for Greg's question, who wins the NFC East? The Cowboys. Right?
Yeah.
It's got to be the Cowboys.
The Eagles have to win out to win the East.
Yeah.
Because just looking at the next 2 weeks, if they win tomorrow, they're still a game behind the Cowboys. If they win next week against the Cowboys, they'd be tied. But the Eagles have to play the Rams yet. So their hope would be that the Rams lock up the West, which they clinched today. Actually, no. Their hope is that the Rams lock up the 1 seed.
Right, that's what I was going to say. They don't want just a division.
No.
That only gives them the top 4.
No,
they want a top 2,
right.
and they'd like to have the 1.
Right.
So, the Rams are definitely still playing. So I don't think that'll help the Eagles in 2 weeks.
Right, that's the problem. So I think, honestly, Houston is another tough one that the Eagles have to play yet. So, there's a couple really tough games the Eagles have. And that leads to a different issue, but we'll talk about that some other time.
All right, so going back to the Packers briefly here as they pop up on our screen again, Zach mentions to us that only one Super Bowl in 13 years with McCarthy, and that wasn't enough. We mentioned Dabo and Harbaugh being on the list. Zach chimes in and says, if Harbaugh can't beat Ohio State, he won't last much longer at Michigan.
Listen, you've got some people who could buy into that here. Now, I thought this might have been his best coaching job at Michigan, minus 1 game this year. However, I've been on now part of it was me just trolling, but I've been on what has he done coming into this year? You could argue that he was maybe middle of the pack in the Big Ten in terms of coaching,
right?
Prior to this year, now they had a great year, lost to the 2 best teams they played. Right.
It happens.
Listen, the team I root for, they lost to the 3 best teams they played. Right. So,
well, I'm not sure that's true.
You're right.
Because I don't think Michigan State was one. I think Ohio State and Michigan for sure. I'll give you that, but I'm not sure Michigan State ended up being
we
up
beat
there.
the ACC, one of the division champions, 51-6 in their home stadium.
That's true. This is true, and I'll hang my hat on that victory. But Zach wants to know how long before Oakland makes noise again. Were we surprised by the Chargers as I was? So, Oakland, after this year, I think they got at least another year, if not 2.
So, here's the problem. Some of the draft picks are this year, but not all are this. They have 3 first-rounders this year, right?
Yeah.
They have 3 first-rounders this year. I think – so next year I think they're better than they are this year. The year after that, I think, is when they start. Start to see.
You're looking at 2020. We're back into the 20s before,
and we're finally getting close to when they move to Vegas, whenever that is.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, side note from that game today. This is kind of crazy, but Derek Carr became the all-time leading passer for the Raiders today.
Really?
Yeah. I was blown away. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned. 17,000 some yards. I was stunned.
With some of the names that they've had.
They have Hall of Fame quarterbacks.
Ken Stabler.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, and I know people,
Rich Gannon was kind of the flash in the pan. Exactly, there was a short time period there where he was really good.
Okay. So
Delaware.
We alluded to the Rams. They won today in Detroit. They struggled a little bit, but they ended up getting the victory 30-16. Texans continue to roll.
Man,
9 straight wins for them. 9-3 now.
They're getting fun to watch too.
Browns started awful. Baker looked terrible, and he turned it on in the second half.
Yeah.
But they couldn't hang with Houston. Houston gets their longest winning streak in franchise history over the Browns, 29-13. And then the one I kind of mentioned earlier about a fantasy dud, Talk about having Mac Hilton and
Every week.
Andrew Luck on your fantasy team. Now, I didn't start all three, but I did start Luck and Hilton. Thankfully, I also had Philip Lindsay, so that made up for it a little bit for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Jags get back in the winning column, and now the Colts have to play for a wild card now because the Texans have a 3-game lead.
Right. Well, and because now I thought it was going to be more interesting. I think the Colts and Jaguars end the season against each other. I think we looked at that last time. But the Colts went for it on 4th and short in overtime last time, instead of punting with a few seconds left and going for the tie. And it set up Houston, and Houston was able to kick a field goal. This might have been like week 4. This might have been the first game that they had won. But at that point, looked like neither team was going to really do much. And I was like, hey, that was the right move by Reich. They go for it. And I'm not saying it wasn't the right move, but that loss against Houston is coming. That's looming large now.
Giant
that's a
now, yeah.
2-game swing because it was in the division.
So I know they play tonight, but we kind of passed over this question when it was asked. Zach wanted to know, are we surprised about the Chargers? They're doing better than we expected.
I'm surprised they're so good. Yes,
I'm disappointed they lost last week. That I think was a huge disappointment for them.
Yeah.
But they need to rebound this week because they're in Pittsburgh tonight.
Right.
So they don't have an easy game.
And Pittsburgh lost last week, so you got Pittsburgh coming off a loss,
and they're at home.
Oh, and the Ravens are surging for the Ravens. It's tough, but they've won 3 in a row, and you split with them already. The Ravens and Steelers played twice already like that. There's none of those left. So. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
I'm surprised to a point by the Chargers, but I think you and I both agreed that we thought in the West it was Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders.
I think I picked Denver to win it.
Did you really?
Yeah,
man, it's been a while since we talked about
because I thought the defense was going to be stellar,
and Case Keenum was
Case Keenum was going to be what he was in Minnesota, and the last few weeks, they've looked like what I thought they were going to look like all year. That's basically what it comes down to. But they didn't at the beginning of the year. I think they dug themselves too big of a hole. Oh, and the Chiefs, while I thought they were going to be good, I thought there was going to be a bit more of a learning curve for Patrick Mahomes, who is unbelievable.
No, we were wrong about that.
Although there's a learning curve. He's just at the top.
I had the Chiefs winning that division. So
you did, yeah.
I'm very happy about that one. Of course, I probably screwed up the rest of them, but I had the Chiefs.
Right.
So Zach also mentioned that the NBA has the American Airlines Center and the American Airlines Arena.
Yeah.
So, it's not uncommon for these massive corporations to sponsor multiple stadiums in the same sport.
Hey, when you've got it, spend it, right?
Right, yeah, sure. That's something like that. Something like that. All right, so my team survived today. Thankfully, they needed to.
Man, at the end, too. Oh, my gosh.
It was
Tell me you saw how it ends.
I don't want to know.
Okay, so Josh Allen runs around for about 20 seconds, running around, throws to a guy who is wide open.
Clay?
Yeah, wide open. He's the only guy on the near side of the end zone. But the ball's going to be short, so he's running, and he dives for it, but he couldn't catch it. He would have been at the goal line, but there was no one close. He could have caught it and rolled into the end zone.
On the last play.
As time expired, yeah.
So I did know something like that happened. I watched Red Zone, and at that time I wasn't around to be watching Red Zone, but I did see a tweet immediately following the Dolphins' victory that what turned out to be the game-winning touchdown by the Dolphins was set up, I believe, by a penalty on Jordan Phillips of the Bills, who was a Dolphins cast-off this year, and the guy who didn't catch the last-second touchdown was Charles Clay, a former Dolphin that left for Buffalo in free agency. So I think there was a little...
I think they said Ryan Tannehill has won his last 8 starts in Miami.
Really?
That probably spans over 4 years.
Yeah, it's like four seasons, yeah. So Miami, my team, they're 6-6. They have a tough last 4 games though, because they have, I believe, New England next week in Miami.
Yeah,
won 4 of the last 5 against them in Miami.
If Ryan Tannehill starts, you're good.
We should be good to go. They also have Minnesota, and I believe they finished in Buffalo the last week of the season. So there's a game in there that I can't recall who they play. But, obviously Buffalo is beatable, is winnable. Now it's in Buffalo, so that's tough. New England, I would say that's a loss, except it's in Miami. It's almost close to a toss-up. I still favor the Patriots, but I'm not going to count Miami out. Minnesota's a tough one, though, because they're going to be playing for something just like Miami, so who knows what will happen there. I do not recall who their 4th game is. But,
yeah.
If they go on a run, they basically, to not be a disappointment to me, they have to win all 4. Because if you don't, you're in that terrible 7 to 9-7 range, which you don't want to be.
Being 9-7 and missing the playoffs is absolutely the worst thing that could happen.
I hate it so much.
Unless you're like the Patriots way back, and when they won 10 or 11 games in the playoffs.
11-5, yeah, 2008. They won 11-5 with Matt Castle after Brady's injury in Week 1.
I know we feel terrible for them.
Miami won the division that year, so I did not give a crap at what was happening with the Patriots. Not gonna lie, I'm sure everyone is aware of that too. So one of the biggest surprises that we alluded to at the beginning of the show was this one.
Yeah.
Giants Bears in the Meadowlands in New York, New Jersey, and the Giants win again.
Yeah. Won 3 of their last 4.
They easily probably could have beaten Philadelphia.
They should have if they forgot they had the best rookie running back, best offensive rookie in the league.
Yeah. And they shocked the Bears. Now, Bears didn't have Trubisky.
Yeah.
So, and the Giants have a new quarterback.
Yeah.
And Odell Beckham.
And this is crazy because they're up. The Bears kick the field goal. They're up 10. The Bears kick the field goal. The Bears recover the onside kick. And
because Odell Beckham doesn't know what to do on the hands team.
Right. And then they go down and they score on a trick play. And then the Giants take forever and kick a field goal. But the Bears couldn't get it done. It was just, it was unbelievable.
Now, because of the super teams we have this year, and even with the loss, the Saints, the Rams, the Chiefs, the Bears losing today probably doesn't make much of a difference because they were going to be 2 or 3 games back anyways.
And the entire NFC
the Packers lost, the Vikings lost, the Lions lost. So they lose no ground. Right. Now, obviously, they prefer to be 9-3 and maybe chasing the 2 seed, depending on how things go with the Saints and Rams. But they didn't lose any ground in the NFC North, so they have that going for them. Another one that's, man, I don't know what's happened to the Panthers, but they can't get it done after and they lost last week at home to Seattle, and now they lose to the Buccaneers, who
they had 2 losses in a row by a combined 4 points, pretty much at the gun, and then they lose by a touchdown here.
Cam Newton threw 4 interceptions.
Yeah,
and the Buccaneers are surprising me at 5-7. I didn't know that they were 5-7, but well, they did start 2-0, and then they lost that shootout to the Steelers in Week 3, and they seem to have gone downhill since then.
Well, they've switched quarterbacks a couple times.
Yeah, like every game, I think they switched 3 times.
Jameis Winston had 4 interceptions in this game too.
Not a great game.
Well, the quarterbacks combined for 8 interceptions.
Yeah. So we talked about the Raiders' future a little, but the Raiders' present, they weren't able to handle the Chiefs' offense.
They made it close, but
I saw our buddy Corey Greth, who we coached with at Wilson West, was saying, I expected the Chiefs game to go into the Chiefs-Raiders game to be 70 combined points, but I didn't think the Raiders would have 30 of them.
Right. That's a fair assessment. It doesn't surprise me that the Chiefs score 40. It surprises me a little bit that they gave up 33.
33 to the Raiders.
Right. The Raiders aren't.
I think you can say they were probably looking past them because, the Raiders are one of the worst teams in the league. Right. Are they the worst team in the league now at 2-10? Are the 49ers still 2-10?
Niners were going to lose. They got blown.
Oh yeah, I know they were getting destroyed.
But I don't know.
Here's my favorite one though.
Oh my gosh.
Jets were up 16-0.
And the Titans come back, and Mariota looked amazing.
He's
the last,
looked really
5
good.
minutes.
When
he looked
healthy,
awful in the first half. Awful in the first half. Looked amazing in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. He was able to get it done, and he brings his team back from a 16-point deficit to win 26-22.
And who threw an interception at the end of the game, or near the end of the game?
Was it McCown or Darnold?
Darnold again.
I wasn't even sure which one was playing.
I shouldn't say that. I think it's Darnold. I don't even know that it was, but.
See, the thing is, when it comes to that, though, is remember Peyton Manning's rookie year? How many interceptions he had?
Yeah.
Not to say that Sam Darnold's the next Peyton Manning.
That's
but,
what you said. Write it down. Right. I heard you.
It's there. It's here forever.
Yeah, but it's one of those
and
I understand it is different as you go, but it is interesting because if you take out that first game for Sam Darnold, and again, I don't know that this was him, but if you take out the first game, the first season looks a little different. But
couple of comments to get to here. Greg says the end of the season could be crazy for a lot of teams. That is very true.
Absolutely.
Now, while there are some teams that are going to have locked up 1 or 2 seeds or divisions, there's a lot of jockeying in the playoff alignment, the positioning, the seeds, and then also who's going to get those 2 wild cards. Because right here in the the AFC South, the Titans and Colts are 6-6. They're in the race.
Yeah.
Right now, you have the Ravens as one of those wild cards at 7-5, but that's only a game up.
Right.
And then you're going to come
only
down
a game behind the division too.
Right.
And they're playing the Chargers tonight.
So it could be interesting. It should be a great and what is close to a decade now when the NFL changed their rules that like the last 3 or 4 weeks are mostly going to be divisional games. Yeah. It's going to be incredible. This December of football is going to be a lot of fun in the NFL.
Yes.
Zach said he has a couple of questions left, but then he's got to go and hit the books. So who have we got tomorrow? So in the Monday night game between your Eagles and the Redskins, I took the Eagles in this because I just think the Redskins, I think they peaked. We maybe saw them playing above what they should have been playing with Alex Smith out. I don't like to hate on Colt McCoy because I like Colt McCoy. But
he is what he is.
But to me, the Redskins were overachieving already, and I think this is going to bring them back to earth. I think the Eagles were underachieving. I think they're better than they've been playing. They're better on paper. They just got to get it together on the field. So I think the Eagles win tomorrow night, put a little bit of pressure on the Cowboys, and set up a nice showdown next week.
I picked the Redskins because you're
an Eagles fan.
If the Eagles win, then I'm happy because the Eagles won. Screw my pick.
Yeah, who cares?
That's basically right. And if the Redskins win, at least I picked it right.
Right, it's doubling down.
So to circle back to Zach's first comment,
or hedging your bets,
right? Instead of expecting to win, I just expect to lose every week, and then when we win, it's better.
Right.
See?
That is
the bar low.
That is my mantra on life.
Aim low, boys.
So many things to say.
Yes.
But Zach also asked if I'm excited to see the Captain Marvel trailer tomorrow. The Captain Marvel trailer, which is coming out tomorrow during the football game. We've kind of gotten into the cycle where some of the biggest trailers for movies happened during Monday Night Football. Star Wars did it a couple years in a row, and now Captain Marvel trailer will be coming out tomorrow night. I think this will be the first official full trailer. We've gotten a teaser trailer already, and the movie drops in March. I'm super excited to see that. It continues the string of MCU movies from Disney and Marvel, but this movie takes place in the 90s, so it doesn't have anything to do with a lot of the ones that we've seen already. And how up to speed are you with the Marvel movies?
Not as much as I want to be. So I haven't seen the last Avengers movie.
Ooh.
Because I hadn't seen, when it came out, people were like, oh, you should see, a couple of the movies, leading up, so that I would know who some of the characters kind of are. That sounds terrible, but I think you would know where I'm going with that. And I hadn't seen all those movies yet, so I saw some of those movies, but and you know this, and this is not me trolling right now. I am terrible at seeing movies.
No, yeah, I'm very aware of that. Unless I tell you to come.
Right, if it doesn't involve Joey texting me directly being like, hey, do you want me to buy a ticket for you for this time to see this specific movie? I'm probably not going to see the movie.
Right.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say I never see them, but it's just...
We have a symbiotic relationship when it comes to that. So, I'm very excited for it.
I'm a terrible person.
I'm hoping to see that one in the theater. Star Wars, I'm going to see every movie in the theater probably a couple times. Marvel, it just depends. It has to be an event for me. So I'm really hoping that Captain Marvel will be on my docket in the theater. Avengers 4 obviously will. The ridiculous amount of movies coming out next year just from Disney alone makes me think, how am I going to get to all these in the theater? Because Toy Story 4 comes out next year, plus a bunch of live-action ones.
Never saw Toy Story 3.
Oh, God. All right.
When was that? Maybe almost a year and a half, 2 years ago when we did, movie stuff?
The movie, that was a year and a half ago, yeah.
And, it was didn't see it.
Haven't seen it. No idea. What is that? Who is that? So Denali actually comments that she did the exact same thing this week. But see, her team is the Redskins.
Oh, okay.
So she took the Eagles because she's a Redskins fan. Hedging your bets there.
Well, I hope you're successful just like you were on the Cowboys.
Vikings, Patriots. New England was able to put this one away. Boyertown product James Devlin, 2 carries, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, man, and I think so. You said 2 carries, 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
And I think that makes maybe 4 carries on the season for 4 touchdowns.
They had said during the game 3 for 3.
Right,
so,
yes, yeah.
I don't know at what point that was. So, yeah, James Devlin has the same amount of touchdowns as he does carries.
I thought that was his first one today.
Okay.
I don't know that for sure, though. But
so that continued the trend of NFC North teams
there's got to be
losing.
some crazy efficiency stat there.
New England now has the Dolphins in Miami with the chance to get to another double-digit victory season. We'll see how that plays out. We alluded to the 49ers getting blown out by the Seahawks.
Talk about a dark horse team that I would not want to play.
Right.
Because the Seahawks are probably going to be a wild card team, right? They're not going to catch the Rams.
They're not going to catch the Rams, no.
But they're 7-5, are in great position to keep this going because they're not winning like fluke games. They're stepping up and really getting it done. I mean, I know today was against the Niners, but they're running the ball well. They're protecting Russell Wilson. They've got some output. And it's one of those things. Yeah. And it's one of those things where they, I just look at the Seahawks. I would not want to like host them. You know what I mean? In that first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I understand it. But, so Zach's last comments is addressed directly to Justin. He says, I like your sports thoughts, bro, but your movie cred is lost on me now. So he's off to study, so best of luck, Zach.
I can't even argue that. I can't, like...
He's like, I get it.
See,
I
this is what's going to
understand.
happen. I'm going to eventually text my roommates from college, who are big movie guys in their own right, and tell them, like, yeah, we got into movies on the show tonight, and I didn't know what I was talking about. And they're going to be like, they're going to make fun of me. Because the same thing would happen in college. They'd be like, dude, this is a great movie. Got to watch it in like 15 minutes. And I'd be like, I got to do something else. Like,
so I think not having seen Avengers 3 was a big one. But when you said you didn't see Toy Story 3, that was it. That was when you throw the papers in the air and you walk out.
I know it's sad, so I'm just not going to watch it.
Well, I mean... But it's a Disney Pixar movie. Like, as much as it can be sad, it's still uplifting.
Okay.
And there's a fourth one.
This is one of those where I usually drop. I'm like, better to have never loved than loved and lost, and like wait for somebody to like look at me and be like, that's not how
that's
that
the
goes.
other. Yeah. So actually, I mentioned, I was on Zach's show the other night. It was just Friday night, actually. Zach Arnold and my buddy Ben Hart do the Intergalactic Peace Coalition podcast, and they actually did a holiday-themed episode where we talked about our top 5 favorite holiday movies,
Die Hard,
holiday TV specials, and holiday songs.
That's
it was
awesome.
a blast. It's over 3 hours
Oh
long.
my gosh!
Yeah, I was up till 2 a.m. Saturday morning, essentially.
Well, I saw like you started late Friday night on that. And you're like, oh, getting on. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
Yeah, we started late after 10 o'clock, and until I wrapped up the audio and then sent it over to those guys, it was 2 a.m. So yeah, it was a. But it was so much fun.
That's gotta be, talking that stuff is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had been telling them for the better part of a year that if when you're looking for a top 5 topic, if we get to the holidays, that's one I definitely.
So now what I've got to do is I've got to listen, and I've got to see how many of those movies have I seen.
Yeah, it's funny though because we kind of play that often with Zach's co-host Ben because. I listen to their show and they talk about movies all the time, but sometimes Ben will be like, haven't seen it. Haven't seen it. Nope, didn't see that one. They actually just ran through.
You guys can relate.
Yeah. Because I go through this with Justin, Zach goes through this with Ben. Obviously, we share a lot of common interests, right. But they actually had just done the entire Harry Potter saga.
I've only
8
seen
movies,
one of them.
plus the Crimes of, plus Fantastic Beasts, and
right.
they're doing Crimes of Grindelwald this Friday. So.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen one, and I don't know which one it is. So.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. Again, people might think I'm just like exaggerating for the show. Like that
no,
I
am
telling the truth.
Yeah. So if you're into pop culture and nerdy and geek stuff, basically if you know me and you like the things that I talk about outside of sports, you would enjoy Zach and Ben. So check out the IPC podcast. You can find it on Facebook, and they do their subscriptions through Podbean. So check them out for sure. All right, wrapping up the NFL talk here. I guess that pretty much was it because we already addressed the Monday night game. Eagles, Redskins. Right. I favor the Eagles. You favor the Redskins.
Right.
So
and
obviously,
I honestly don't know. Like I just don't know who's going to win. Like I don't trust the Eagles' offensive line. I don't. If they can protect Wentz, if they can give Wentz time, I think they win.
Right.
Like because. Like, I know there have been times where he hasn't been, like, super great this year, but it's because the offensive line has been awful. if they can run and protect him, they're gonna win. Because I think the defense can be good enough even with the guys in the back. And it was interesting last week. The defense played a little bit better, not at the start, but they got better. But they simplified it as the game went on. They said Malcolm Jenkins went in and said he has to, like, he went to Jim Schwartz and said, you've got to simplify it because, like, the calls, you're making on the field, this is so complex in the NFL. And he's like, we literally have 3 guys starting there that weren't on the roster at the beginning of the year. Like, we need to, like, simplify this. So they simplified the calls, made it, and they just executed better. But we talk about that a lot. What's the difference in the NFL between a win and a loss is just executing the play a few times more in a game. So
you're getting called out for not seeing Harry Potter, by the way.
Yeah, it's okay.
Some people would say that it's not okay. It's just whoa, I screwed that up. Oh well, they'll get the gist. So, yeah.
And Toy Story 3.
Oh, that one's more egregious to me because Harry Potter is a commitment. That's 8 movies. All over, I think, 2 hours long.
Right.
So starting in the early 2000s to the 2010s,
right.
There's a lot going on there. But Toy Story, there's only at this point 3,
and
and they're some of the greatest movies
they are.
ever.
They're like, yeah. The first one is amazing. The second one's like fun, but like,
see, the second one actually has a higher rating than the first one.
That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise
me.
I feel like the first one to me is just special because that was still when that kind of stuff was new.
That was
too.
brand new.
It just that was so different from any movie we had seen. And that's part of it. And I don't know. It was cool. And I think I was getting to the age where I was realizing how cool it was to have the stars as the voices. There was just a lot that goes into me liking that first one a lot.
Yeah, it's an incredible movie. Incredible. It's always in my top 5 when it comes to Disney Pixar movies. But bring it back to NFL full circle here. Chargers, Steelers in Pittsburgh right now. The Steelers are on top 13-7. And thank you, everyone. James Conner has both of the Steelers' touchdowns. 2 rushing touchdowns in the first half. I'd love for him to get another one, but I was already going to beat Adam. So that's icing on the cake there for me.
Right. You may get the 1 seed.
No, I can't because I lost to Uncle Bob twice.
Oh, okay.
It's just like Adam couldn't catch you because you beat Adam twice. So, yeah, you guys had locked up the divisional championship.
I have lost 4 in a row, counting this one because I'm going to lose this week, too.
Yeah, well, my dad just said that, was it
So
Friday?
Before this week, though, I'd lost 3 in a row and averaged over 110 points in that 3-week stretch. Now, I can't complain too much.
I beat you, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I scored 111 you beat me last week.
Was that last week?
And I had 111 because Miller went off on on Monday night early on, and you're just if you catch me.
Oh yeah, because I scored 133 and you ended up with 120.
But I think I beat your dad 140 something to 130 something. So I've won some of those games this year too.
Yeah, you've been putting up the points.
Yeah, so I just need the guys to get right.
Yeah, see, you'll have a week off.
Right,
so.
That's good. Bye, rest.
Yeah, right. The way that works in fantasy.
That's right.
So, I was excited that Philip Lindsay had a huge day, which we may win in our other league. We're terrible. We're terrible in that league, but we might get a win this week, which is great. But the Steelers up on the Chargers, they do have the ball again. About 7 minutes to go in the second quarter. So
buddy mine's at that game. So,
oh, really?
Yeah,
cool.
Big Steelers fan. So
I was gonna say, is he cheering for the Steelers?
Yes, he is.
Okay, because otherwise it can get a little dicey, when you go into enemy territory. Mm-hmm. Anything you want to say about college football before we take off?
So we kind of had a little discussion. I honestly think they got it right with the 4 teams that they picked. I was kind of hoping they would pick Georgia for the chaos that would ensue,
right, yeah.
or and this isn't I feel like Notre Dame is worthy. I'm not. That's not the point I'm making. But if they would have gotten left out, having not played a conference championship, just because them getting left out, or Oklahoma and Ohio State getting left out, I feel like we might have seen 18 playoff next year. I've heard people pushing more and more for the 16 playoff and giving the top 2 a bye. I am not a fan. I don't like 6. I want 8.
Well, I was going to say I prefer 8 but I would take 6 on a step towards 8. You know how slow this stuff moves.
No, yeah, you're right.
So if it means that 1 and 2 get a bye and 3 play 6 and 4 play 5, I'll take that. But then in 5 years, I want to have an 18 playoff.
Right.
I honestly think they could get a 16 team to done. I mean, all the other divisions do it, right? Isn't it 16?
Yeah.
The Division 2 and Division 3?
Yeah.
You're saying the biggest...
Which, by the way, last week Duquesne won their first ever, well, their second ever playoff game, I think, but they got their first ever win in FCS.
Oh, okay.
And then they had to play South Dakota State.
Ooh.
Not North Dakota State, but South Dakota State, who is also...
really good.
Yeah, they lost.
They lost.
Yeah.
That was a loss.
To copy a conversation we had earlier before the show on an unrelated topic, it was a day. It was a day.
So another
Duquesne Dukes.
So well, just to finish up what you were saying is, I completely agree with you. I think the committee got it right for this. I would have liked to see chaos just because it wasn't going to impact Penn State. I think Penn State was going to Citrus no matter what.
Right. When UCF won yesterday, Penn State was bound for. When UCF won and Washington won. Washington was the other sneaky one.
That was Friday night.
Because
so when that played out, and I knew Penn State wasn't going to go anywhere besides the Citrus. They weren't going to make the New Year's 6 bowl games. I was just like, let's get some chaos in there, and maybe it'll start to get people really mad, like Jim Delaney. If Ohio State and Oklahoma didn't make it, or Notre Dame didn't make it, something crazy like that. Because I want an 18 playoff. I think that really would silence a lot of critics and loud voices that when you have 8 teams, like, how many times would a team outside the top 8 ever win a national championship?
It leads to, you're going to have the discussion you have with college basketball. I know it's a much larger number there, but when you can't make the top 68 teams, you can't really, you can argue over that, but if you can't make the top 68, that's on you. You know what I mean? That really is on you. In college, if you don't make the top 4, it's not necessarily on you. And I know it gets ridiculous. But people can't just say to UCF, well, schedule other teams. They can't. Teams won't play them. It's not as simple as, oh, well, schedule SEC teams non-conference. Okay, find an SEC team that's going to play them non-conference, and I guarantee you UCF will take it. You know what I mean? Because they want to win the games they want to. Now, I'm not saying they would win those games, but it's when you have it not come down to I feel like it should be the college football invitational. That's what this should be called, because it's not a playoff. Because you can win every game the whole season and not win.
Right.
And when you have to debate, well, which is more important, good wins or bad losses?
Right.
What? It becomes a competition.
What?
Right. It becomes a competition, not a what I like about football is there's no you don't sit at the game and think, oh, well, they played better, but they had the worst score, so I still think they should move on. Well, that's not how it works, right? But that's how it works when you're selecting the teams, and I just don't. I understand that's how it works, but I don't like it.
Right?
Does that make sense? I understand that's the part, but I just don't like it. So I'm hoping that it eventually gets to 8. And you're right. If 6 was on the way to 8, I would take it. But
that's ultimately where I want to end up. I mean, I really my ultimate dream for a Division I, FBS college football playoff is at a minimum 16, because I don't think you could ever get to 32. You can't start getting to basketball because it's just different. You can't play more than one game a week.
Right.
So I think 16 is where you cap it. But think about a field of 16. You get the top 5, the Power 5 conferences, everyone that won that championship.
Which essentially makes the championship games a playoff game.
You could take
potentially,
kind of,
they
possibly
almost become semifinal games.
So that's only 5 teams right there. So say you take the top independent team, which is basically Notre Dame. When is it never not going to be Notre Dame?
Right.
You could say they have to win at least 9 games, 10 games, and there'll be language, but basically you're saying
you could say they have to be in the top 10 of the ranking, they do for the UCF.
True, yeah.
In that world.
So Power 5, an independent, you could take 2, because there's always talk about a Memphis or a Middle Tennessee State, all these other teams that pop up every so often. We've seen Boise State and Fresno State, before conference realignments and whatnot. So you got 5 from the Power 5, 2 from the Group of 5, and an independent. That's still only 8.
Right.
So you have 8 more teams that you can invite in.
Right.
So you can take basically, you could almost say, all right, everyone that played in the conference championship could be taken in if you wanted to do it that way. Now, you probably would end up with rankings, but that's a lot of the teams you're going to see. So you're basically going to see the 2 top teams from the Big 5 conferences.
Well, that's like somebody took like the top 8 and like showed what those.
I saw someone do the top 16.
Right, and they're like, yeah, because nobody would want to watch this. It would ruin college football.
Yeah.
Like, and this is the problem I have. People are like, well, if you add all those teams, it's going to ruin the best regular season in all of sports. No, it's not, because you've already done that. You've already said the regular season doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Georgia lost to the two best teams they played. They lost both those games. And there was a debate over whether or not they should get in. You know, like, who did they beat? Like, they beat SEC teams. Okay.
But they didn't beat LSU or Alabama.
Right. The 2 best teams they played, they lost to. You know, and they play in the weaker of the 2 divisions. So, I don't understand it. I don't understand how that can work. And if you look at Oklahoma, okay, they beat their only loss, you know, in the championship game. Well, that's fine, but I honestly think Purdue would beat Texas. Like, I honestly do. I know Purdue was 6-6, but I think Purdue beats Texas.
Is that who they're playing? I didn't see that. So.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, that's who beat Ohio State.
Oh, okay.
And
I got you.
Now, I know the problem is they crushed Ohio State.
Yeah, they destroyed them.
Right. But,
all right, so.
I just. And people are like, oh, well, they lost a neutral site game. Well, yeah, because they never play Texas on the road.
Right.
Like, it's always a neutral site game. So they never play. The best team they play every year.
Red River Rivalry.
The team they play that should be the best every year in Texas, they never play at Texas. Now, I know it's in Texas, but they do 50-50 sales. Like, you know, like, so, okay. Like, I just don't, I don't get that. And they beat a Texas with Sam Ehlinger, who's hurt. Like, he played, but he's been injured the last 3 weeks. So, like, I don't know. Like, I think Oklahoma deserved it. But, like, I just feel like you're just explaining whoever you pick in. You're explaining why you pick them over the other teams.
My problem
it's never the same.
Is the inconsistency.
Yeah.
Because we saw 2 years ago they took Ohio State over Penn State.
Right.
Then last year they flipped the switch and it went the other. Now it had nothing to do with Penn State.
Right.
But like, and now this year they're back to what they set out to do.
Right.
Like we value conference champions.
Right.
It's like, okay, just figure it out. But if you just would do what we want, what everyone wants is an 8-team or a 16-team playoff. This is what you would get if it was a 16-team playoff. Alabama, West Virginia.
Oh my gosh, that'd be incredible.
Clemson, Texas. Notre Dame, Kentucky. Oklahoma, Washington State.
Where they'd score 1,000 points.
Georgia, Penn State. Like, no one would watch that game. Ohio State, LSU. Michigan, Florida, which we're already getting, and UCF, Washington. Yeah, no one would watch those games. Those 8 games are just terrible.
That'd be incredible.
And that is essentially college football royalty playing there for a majority of those.
Okay, let's speak the language that the NCAA really wants to hear. There's a lot of money to be had if you do this.
Because honestly, the game that probably would have the lowest turnout would probably be UCF Washington. You would think, because that's not a huge. Neither of them are huge programs. I think if you looked at.
But if now this is getting crazy, and I know they probably wouldn't do this. Let the top 8 host their first game.
That would be awesome.
Because then you're still now your conference championship still means something.
Yeah.
So because Georgia and Alabama are still they're both going to get in, but now.
Well, Georgia would still be hosting a home game, but
right, I know, but I mean, like, you could, whether you're in that top 8 or not, would matter. It could still add some significance to those games instead of people. But imagine that.
Well, no, here, make it even better. You host your first 2 games.
Oh my god!
Because think about it.
Yeah.
The way it's set up now, so you host your first 2 games. If you host your first 2 games, the conference championships absolutely matter for a game like Alabama, Georgia, because now Georgia isn't hosting in the second round.
Right. Yeah.
They're probably obviously if there's an upset that could change.
Well, yeah, because they're going to lose in the first round, but
right, yeah, because Penn State was going to beat them anyways.
Right.
But yeah, so the higher number, the better seeds host the first 2 rounds. So there are teams that could realistically host 9 games at home.
Yeah.
With an additional 2, because most teams have 12, and it's usually like a 7-5, 6-6-7-5 split around there. I'm sure it could get crazy at some points, depending on the non-conference
that gets crazy
teams you're
with
playing.
the scheduling. That's one of the reasons why Penn State Pitt are not continuing, because Penn State requires 7 home games a year.
Yeah.
A minimum of 7 home
Right.
games a year.
So
every now and then they get 8, but it's rare.
Most big-time programs are getting no worse than 6. 7 pretty much guaranteed, and sometimes they want 8.
Right, which
now
doesn't happen as much anymore with the expanded conference schedules. But
top 4 teams would, if you win, get 2 more games at home.
Oh, and then
gate revenues,
just like everything else, like season ticket holders get priority on tickets. But I tell you what, they don't cost the same as your regular season tickets.
And don't give me the crap about weather in the Northeast. I don't want to hear about it. I just mean about sales. I don't even mean about competitive balance.
It won't even matter.
Don't give me about the educational aspects either, because you send the basketball players how many places in such a little time. I don't want to hear it. You can work it out. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
So first 16-team playoffs, first 2 rounds are hosted by the better seed, the lower number seed, the higher ranking, and then when you get to your final 4, those are 2 of the preeminent bowl games, and then you have your national championship game. That is how you do it. That is how you do it.
Can you imagine?
I mean,
imagine the TV money that would be shelled out for that.
Oh my gosh, it would be immense.
ESPN, CBS, Fox, NBC, they'd be shelling out huge money for this.
A first round game of Penn State, Georgia in Georgia.
Oh my gosh.
Which would be next weekend.
Yeah.
So the weekend of Army Navy would be the round of 16. So that would be the second Saturday. The third Saturday, the week this year would be the 16th. Would be the round of 8. Then, if you want, because of Christmas, some years you might have some difficulty. You might want to take a break. They might want to give a break for the holidays, because not a lot. And I mean, there are other lower tier games that play around the holidays, so they may not care. But you could afford that break, because you can go into January. They don't play it on the weekend anyways. It's not like the NFL playoff games are getting involved. They always play it on Monday, or Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday.
I think.
Or is it Monday? No, because it's NFL playoffs, so it's Monday.
Right.
I was thinking Monday Night Football, but it's January, so it doesn't matter. So they play the national championship game on Monday already. Teams like Penn State won't have played in 6 weeks.
Right.
For the bowl game now.
Right.
But in this scenario, they would be playing this coming weekend.
Right.
Having 1 week off, not playing
awesome.
The conference championship.
That'd be awesome.
Well, then I'm sure you'd have people being like, well, it's not fair to the teams who played the conference championship. They didn't get the week off. Cry me a river.
Right.
But
guess what? Now they get to host games, which is going to get your school money, which is going to help your program.
So it just boggles my mind that they haven't gotten to this realization. I'll take 8, but the dream is 16.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
The dream is 16.
The scenario we just ran out there would be incredible.
I mean, this is the perfect year.
Let's get it started.
Outside of maybe...
Let's offer up... Let's send a proposal to the NCAA for media rights to this process.
Outside of, maybe 4 teams. UCF, Washington State, and Kentucky. I wouldn't consider them college football, the blue bloods of college football. But the rest of them, that would be a heck of a field. And I like having both Washington and Washington State in. I like having those local rivalries in there together. And I like UCF, 2 straight seasons undefeated. They deserve to be there.
I agree.
Kentucky had a hell of a rebound year.
Yeah.
It'd be fun to see them there. And I guarantee
Texas has gotten... They're relevant again.
There is no way those top 8 are going chalk.
No.
Not a chance. No. Not a chance.
No way. And that's why it would be fun. That's why it would be fun. But
you take... March Madness.
You win a 16-team playoff. You are the national champions.
There's no doubt about it.
UCF comes out of that, they get their parade at Disney World again.
Yep. So did I ever mention this? I pulled it up, and I don't think I ever said anything. So to get out of here now, just one last shout out to former Wilson football player Rodney Hill on the great 2018 we've talked about in the past. Class of 2009 from the school. He is currently the assistant director of football sports performance for the UCF Knights, and they finished undefeated, AAC champions, and his father posted a picture of him with the trophy in the locker room after the game. So congratulations to Rodney and UCF. Big things for him. He actually worked at Penn State. He's worked with the New York Giants. So he is making his way up through the football culture, through the college ranks, and some time in the NFL. And it's awesome to see former Bulldogs doing some big and grand things on some pretty big stages. All right. So anything else to add from you?
No.
All right. I don't think I have anything to add either. We will be back in 2 weeks, again off next week for the football banquet. Wilson football banquet next Sunday, so I'll be heading to that. So we'll be back in 2 weeks on December 16th, talk more NFL, and maybe get ready for some of the college football bowl games should be starting up as well.
Yep.
So I think that's everything. So for Justin Raffoff, I'm Joe Mays. This was episode 266 of the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening to the Joe Mays and J-Raff Show. Tune in every Sunday for the latest sports discussions from Joe and Justin. Each episode is available live
On Facebook Live.
and can be downloaded or streamed on iTunes and SoundCloud. You can interact with Joe and Justin on Facebook and Twitter, and stay up to date with the guys at joemaysandjraff.com. The Joe Mays and J-Raff Show is part of the JMNJR Radio Network. For more info, visit jmnjrradio.com.